when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Australia's best independent news and opinion radio show, The Daily Australian, with Nicola Charles and Jason Olbourne.
Hello and welcome to Thursday, June the 26th. It is episode 120 of The Daily Australian, and I promise you today, the two people that you're looking at, well, I don't think we're going to be like throwing punches at each other, but we're not going to agree on everything. There's a promise for you, and we are going to talk about all sorts of things. I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt that I am. How about that? I'm throwing them all out there. Nicola Charles, welcome this Thursday. How is the temperature this winter? We are freezing cold once again.
Freezing, there's fog and mist in the mountains, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to go on there's a 360 camera that's always running on Lake Mountain, which is a good indicator for us in our part of town. And there's going to be snowfall. I haven't checked it yet, but I'm really excited. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm broadcasting from my kitchen this morning. And you know what? I reckon I look better. So I might always broadcast from the kitchen. You know, you set everything up, you think the right way, because I worked in television, obviously not in lighting, in my studio, my office. But because of some internet troubles this morning, which seemed to have arrived after I had a disagreement with Grok, bit weird, never happened to get to 120 and have that issue, I thought was a bit weird. So I'm in my kitchen. I feel like I should be doing recipes and a bit of a cooking show, Jason.
Well, I tell you what, we might have to expand out on the new expanded subscriber Daily Australian page. Maybe we can do a cooking segment. Look, let us know if you really want us to, if you want us to do such a thing and branch out, or maybe it's a little bit of our egos running away from us. But I do have to say that I'm not bad in the kitchen, and was once had a job where I was actually working in such. So yeah, I'm not a complete novice. So maybe we'll learn something just the same. But I'd like to say this just at the forefront. I just want to once again thanks to all of our new paid subscribers that are coming aboard. It really is noticeable. I actually got a message this morning from Substack congratulating us on the number of subscribers that are coming aboard. That's something pretty exciting, the same. So we're running up the charts at Substack, and they provide that type of information about number of subscribers and the rate at which people are joining. So that's a big deal. So I'll just let you know what's happening and the reason why. It is part of our 20% off annual plan bestseller for the month of June. So the annual plan was $75 and we took 20% off, and it's just $60, and anyone can come aboard. And originally it was to be able to say, look, it is just to acknowledge our work and thank us and help us to keep going the way that we are, and to keep us off the streets and not distracted trying to put food on the table. But of course, what we're going to do is expand upon that. And one of the first things that we will do is to do a recording twice a week where we take the gloves off in a segment called TDA Unchained. Tell you what, first one's due for recording tomorrow, Nicola. We might have to ruffle our own feathers amongst each other and put a little bit of punch and duty, if you will, into the Daily Australian.
That's okay. Some realism as well. Maybe we'll change some camera angles and let people see, on a small scale what it takes to kind of do what we're doing, and, let them into how we do the research and where we go and that kind of thing. Although you guys are actually part of it, and because you're always sending us stories and ideas and things you found out, particularly one today from the Northern Territory in Australia, which thank you for that. I would have had no idea about that story. But we're like Trump's bunker busters, aren't we? Because we're bunker busting the algorithms. And people say in their comments sometimes, look, we're not trying to break any algorithms here. Yes, we are. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Later on we're going to talk about how I sort of broke Grok this morning. Not broke Grok, but made it do something it never does, which is not answer a question. We'll talk about that later on. And I find it a bit suspicious, Jason, that after all of my chats with the machine this morning, I go into my studio, I came online and saw you and was chatting, and boom, the whole thing went down. So interesting times.
It is, isn't it? When you have something like that strikes at that precise moment, you start to sort of
Mm.
question all sorts of things and question everything as you do. Well, there's a lot obviously to talk about today, and we will do our trip around the world in no particular order, and that's part of the fun of it today. Is that it's just the organic process, two minds thinking out loud and continuing with so many stories, analysis from what's happening. Now, look, there is a bunch of stuff which we can perhaps start overseas if you want to. Now, I'll get a little bit of interesting stuff. I think the theme for today is that the fake news mainstream media is now being called out from all sorts of angles. And that would mean that independent news is going to have to be ready to fill the void. And I keep saying it. So I just want to inquire and to encourage people again. Let's make, if you can, a campaign. You're 6 minutes into today's show. Please hit the like button underneath the video that you're watching. Please repost it with just saying this is an experiment, just to see if the view numbers will change, and call it your algorithm challenge, if you will, something like that. Just be a little bit creative for us today and see if we can make it happen. Now, there's a number of different stories. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to get the dirty news out of the way so far. This is a headline reported today, and it says, courtroom twist, prosecutors have dropped multiple charges against Diddy as sex trafficking trial nears the end. So people are thinking, oh, well, okay, here we go again. We're going to be let down. However, it's not actually the case. No charges were dropped. All 5 remain. Use of those crimes as predicates for liability under RICO was removed. So there's a difference there. There's the nuance, but it's how it's being said to imply that people going after Diddy, and the problem we have, one of the problems was that Maureen Comey, the daughter of James Comey, is the lead prosecutor in this case. So there's a lot more detail there involved. What actually happened? No charges were actually dropped. The RICO predicate acts were removed and other predicate acts remain. So I don't want to get into too much of the detail. I just want to point it out there because we don't want to, we look, really what we want to do in this case is just get to the verdict. We have heard enough information that people have been trafficked, people have been abused, people have been harmed, and we just want to get there to the end and put it behind us and then get on with the rest of the stuff. So that's just one case.
You fact-checked the MSN there, Jason. That's what you did. You fact-checked the MSN.
Yeah, exactly. And we do that in real time there, and we move on because there's a lot more stuff to go. Now, another story that has popped up, and we'll get this one out of the way as well. This is to do with this fellow called Zoran Mumdania, who has just been he's just won the Democrat primary for mayor of New York City, where Andrew Cuomo has conceded. He was the former governor. Now, these are some tweets that have been dug up from Zoran a few years back. We don't
defund the NYPD. That's going to be a hellhole.
Correct. You've just nailed it there. So we don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. In New York City, says Stephen Miller, is the clearest warning yet of what happens to a society when it fails to control migration. And then it's backed up with Bill Clinton congratulating Zoran on your victory in yesterday's primary election and a well-run campaign. I'm wishing you much success in November and beyond as you work to bring New Yorkers together to tackle the city's challenges and shape a stronger, fairer future. So with that, I'm just going to now defer to a short couple of paragraphs by Matt Taibbi, who wrote, and voila, New York City's mayoral race has been won by Zoran Mamdani, no Bernie Sanders-style imitator, but the real thing. The son of a famed socialist scholar and Marvel superhero, every Jacobin reading, kefir wearing student activist huddled in Judean People's Front confabs between bell hooks, readings, and visits to mum and dad on the Upper West Side. In this country, it's the most significant movement victory in a century, almost certainly presaging the in the near future of epic clash at the summit of American politics between socialism and everything else. Let's get ready to rumble, he says. In a comet-like ascent, Mamdani has become a bête noire for conservatives, many Jewish New Yorkers and moderates, thanks to a list of controversial statements, including a quasi-defense of the phrase globalize the intifada. In fairness, after a gotcha question, not signing a state assembly resolution recognizing the Holocaust, and leading efforts to boycott Israel and slow Israeli charities. If that's your thing, feel free to flip out over those, but the true red flag is his economic platform. Ready for this? Rent freezes, free bus rides, free childcare, and subsidised city-owned grocery stores that will buy and sell at wholesale prices, and centralised warehousing and distribution, clamping down on those evil bodega owners and private supermarkets that force overpriced Fritos and soda on the poor. This will be the AOC theory of inflation caused by price gouging deployed in life via a program to reverse ongoing harms of colonialism by liberating humans and non-human food animals from industry-driven food myths that compel us to harm our bodies. And you've stabbed yourself in the face yet. Viva la revolution. They are some fighting words from Matt Taibbi, but an astonishing story there. The one-time mayor was Rudy Giuliani, that we all knew from September 11 in that period, and those comments when he came out that the outcome will be worse than we can bear. A long, long time has come. Now, I went to New York in 1997. And I didn't know much about, except that I wanted to visit. And I went and stayed with a friend who I knew from school here in New South Wales. And he had since moved over and become a New York lawyer. And he explained to me, and we were always lefties, and he explained to me how brilliant Giuliani was at cleaning up New York City at the time. And that got me sort of interested in American politics from a grassroots level. I read his book called, I think it was called Leadership, Giuliani, where he explained what they called zero tolerance policing, which is part of the way that he cleaned up New York City, but it actually wasn't zero tolerance. That's what everyone went with afterwards and tried to mimic it. What he was doing was mobilizing the police force so that when there was events such as broken windows in certain parts of town, he would move people down there. So it was having a presence that would mop up this stuff. And then there was the whole squeegee window washer thing that was going on. And what they found was that with the squeegee washers, that they would have warrants that were never fulfilled that were out for these people. And so what you would find is that little crimes actually led to big crimes, and by dealing with it at the time, they're able to clean it up. Another thing that he did was to make a ruling that you had to have a separation between, would you believe, sex shops at the time. They weren't allowed to be side by side. There had to be multiple gaps between these particular stores in the sleazy parts of town. And so they started to move out and other people moved in. And so it changed. But now we've gone completely the other way, and we've seen what's happened with, as it was just quoted there by Stephen Miller, when you have runaway immigration, that you have a very different situation in New York City. So the city that doesn't sleep, the greatest city in the world, I do wonder if we're going to see anything like that in the future. But here we are. It is game on time.
I hope these people, get what they wish for and get what they planned, because they did this in the UK. There's over 50 councils now, 50 council boroughs that have Muslim mayors, and it's obviously because they want representation for the large amount of immigrants that they've brought in. But it's this whole living in the city, 15-minute city killbox trap. I hate to use such strong words. All of these wealthy people, if you think about London and you think about Paris and you think about Munich and Hamburg, think about New York, think about Los Angeles. I lived there for 7 years, where people have paid tens of millions of dollars, or if they didn't, their properties have become that value because these were such sought after areas to live in, whose properties are now on track to be worthless. And that city properties are going to be worthless because characters like Bill Gates are busy buying up huge swathes of farmland. So they're telling you may not live in the countryside. Meanwhile, they're buying up huge swathes of countryside. And I genuinely think they want us in these hellhole cities, which I refer to as killboxes. I know that's strong language. I'm actually doing a podcast on the White Rabbit this weekend with a friend of mine in Europe who is looking at countries all over the world, primarily Israel and the Czech Republic, because they're so far apart, on how all of this 5G, 6G stuff that's in the cities is now reported in peer-reviewed papers to be having detrimental effects on fertility, whereas in rural areas, the fertility is carrying on as normal. So this could be one of the reasons why they want us into the cities, why they've created the climate lie and we can't be in the countryside. And, you get to the city and your property is worthless. Now, obviously, these very highfalutin self-professed elites, they would have known this was coming, so they would have offloaded their expensive properties. You can actually see that in the area that I live in the southeast of Melbourne. People with vast, sprawling rural properties are selling up. And I ask myself, what do they know that we don't know? So they're creating this hellscape, right? They want it essentially like Blade Runner in these cities. a digital technological hellscape. And they absolutely want this migration. I mean, I think I asked you to get a map. I don't know if you got it. It doesn't really matter. But I woke up this morning and I was thinking, why would they be moving all these people? It's not that they hate us and they love them. The countries that people are migrating from, Jason, are essentially equatorial countries, right? They're along that hot belt of the planet. And they are moving them into Europe, into North America, and down to Australia. Now, that's probably because this digitized 5G, 6G, 7G system, this mesh, this network, this matrix that they want us to exist under, they don't want to build that out in countries that are along the equator. What are they also doing in countries in Europe, North America, and Australia? They're also doing their blocking out the sun stuff, which they're not doing in China. Excuse me. They're not doing in Africa. They're not doing in India. So that central part will still have sunlight. It won't have a built-out 5G, 6G system. And all of these migrants, all of these people are being moved to the countries that do have it. So that's something I'm going to be looking at further, Jason.
It is interesting, isn't it, that this migration component, also with the climate change motivation, if you will, the official story there. And of course, yeah, we all know what we think about that, and we can talk about that in as much detail as we like. But if you're telling the world that the world is heating up and the opposite is holding, and there's so many things we can talk about there, but where your food growth, if it moves to the colder areas, by moving away from the equator, is going to slow food growth. It's going to be, let's say, famine inducing. So there's another scenario there as well.
So they told us we're overpopulated, Jason, and they're moving more populations in to overpopulate us. Nothing they say makes sense.
No, absolutely. Now, look, the climate change story, so many different ways. I used my Venus versus Earth example to some climate zealots the other day, and they didn't know what to say. I said, well, you do the maths. Explain it to me using linear maths, exponential or logarithmic, but explain to me how Earth with 0.0432% carbon dioxide at an average temperature of 15 degrees, if that goes up to 532 parts per million, which would be a roughly 20% increase, how the temperature of Earth is going to increase by 10%, by 1.5 degrees, from 15 to 16.5 degrees centigrade, if you're claiming that that's the case. But then I want you to compare it to the fact that Venus has 96% carbon dioxide. We have 0.04% carbon dioxide, and they are 1/3 of the way closer towards the sun, and the temperature only reaches 464 degrees. I said, based on a linear thing, and if it's exponential, it'd be worse. That means the temperature on Venus would be 21,000 degrees, not 464 degrees. And furthermore, the temperature on the surface of the sun only reaches 5,500 degrees. So your mathematics is out. Show me your arithmetic that explains it to me like I'm an idiot. And then I said, if you reverse,
it's just theories.
Exactly. And I said, if you reverse the mathematics, realizing 96% to 0.04%, and you put it all together, the incremental increase in temperature is not 1.5 degrees caused by the carbon dioxide effect. It would be 0.03 degrees. So it would go from 15 to 15.03, which is negligible. You don't even notice such a thing. It's a nonsense. So whichever way you want.
If they can't make us believe it, Jason, they can't herd us. I come from a farming community, and I always sort of step back and look at the bigger picture. We're being herded like farm animals into the cities. That's what's happening. And they're herding us there for a reason. And look it up for yourselves. I believe it's the kill box mentality.
I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've only sort of seen a couple of glimpses, but the Bernie Sanders interview on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan ripped him a new one on climate change, amongst many other things. So Bernie's saying, it's real, climate change is real, we've got to do something about it. And he says, well, actually, and so he pointed out a few anomalies. So that's really, really interesting. And so, look, again, the changing of the guard. This is all about narrative shifts. This is why we are here doing the hard yards on a small time level. But the more we get things right, and the more we open up pathways to new discussion, and the more we show a competition of ideas, we're going to be able to engage in debate and discussion once again. Our enemy is always idealism and yet it's what drives us. And this is the component. And so we're playing in this space of independent media and ideas and politics, which I keep talking about, was 51-49. Now, Nicola, I'm sorry to do this. This is a very unusual moment. I'm just having something very sad that it just popped into my head. Yesterday, I just learned that a friend of mine, somebody in my cricket club, sadly passed away at a very young age, and it's just overwhelmed me, just this particular moment. And it appears that he took his own life, and I'm terribly sad about it. And it's just a moment where my humanity is just bursting out as I'm trying to explain to people what's going on. So it's I'm sorry to do this in the middle of the show. It's just overwhelmed me that this beautiful man that helped us all out, is no longer with us. And I wrote a tribute to him last night, and I tried to read it to my wife, and I couldn't stop crying. And here I am welling up again. So look, sorry everyone for what's just happened. I can't believe I'm having one of these personal moments in front of everyone, but it's just absolutely overwhelmed me that I realize the purpose of what we're doing is for humanity. This is not to score points. It's not to make money. It's not to do anything else. But what is the point if we lose the good people along the way? So I apologize for that, and I'll just keep going. Sorry.
Sorry, Jason. It's a terrible loss. I know it's all over. And we're being conditioned to accept it. It's this normalization is abuse. When you normalize the fact that we're always sitting here having lost someone or knowing someone who's desperately ill. You know, I was just talking to you privately this morning about someone in my family whose entire demeanor has changed. Their weight has changed. They've gone from being an ace athlete to being sitting on the couch all day. You know, it's like apathy, like they've put apathy into people. They've demotivated them. I mean, lots of people used to say, you know, there's these parties that believe marijuana should be legalized, and I'm sort of on the fence about it. I know it has medical benefits. I know that. But then there's the argument that it demotivates you. Nothing has demotivated people that I've seen like these injections. And I feel that I know, having looked at all the evidence, what's behind it. I won't go into it. But I think they really want to control people neurologically, decisions that they make. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you talk about suicide generally of your friend, right? It's looking like suicide. What did we report on yesterday? These suicide pods, which they're very keen on making available to people if you're a bit down or you're a bit broke, right? Or you're a bit disabled and don't really know what you're climbing into. And the thought that, I don't know about your friend if this person was injected or not, but the thought that people might be somehow neurologically encouraged to do this. There is this voice to skull technology. You know, this is all stuff we can't go into at length on the show, but you can research yourself. Voice to skull technology. The thought that someone could be putting negative thoughts in other people's heads and driving them to self-depopulate is heartbreaking. I'm very sorry for your loss, Jason.
Thank you. Look, I'll do my best. I'm just so surprised that that happened. I have dealt with so much loss, but it just hit me unbelievably. I was in shock, and and part of our cricket club, that we come together for the love of hitting a ball with a bat, if that makes sense. But
it's not about that, is it? It's about the camaraderie, the family of it.
This is the point, right? And somebody who leads a community like that, unspoken, not the president of the club, but part of the juniors, who was always there when you didn't realize, doing the impossible. And when he contacted me to say, "Are you coming back next year to coach?" And even if I hadn't done a very good job, just the fact that he was not in a position of power there, but he was just interested in building. And it was that wonderful acknowledgement of appreciation of effort from the community. And then encouraging me to come along to join the committee, to be involved at that level, was, come along. And yet this is what's so the antithesis of what's going on. And to think that the world has been robbed of 50 years of such a person, in a circumstance, the world is not the same anymore because of that. And that is just one human being that touched mine and many other lives. Anyway, look, apologies everyone for hijacking the show in this circumstance. Look, In relation to what you just said there, I had cause to watch this David Nino Rodriguez interview with James Martinez. And what I managed to do was to cut a short clip out of it. I want to play it because it might summarize what we're talking about here. But I also think it's very interesting because he reveals, a punchline, if you will. And I think it's valid that we can consider this today. Let me play 2.5 minutes of James Martinez on this interview.
And the most important aspect of this, none of this can work if you, me, and the people watching this are not coerced into voluntary compliance.
So free will.
Yeah, they want you to use your free will to walk into it.
So yeah, right. It doesn't work otherwise. Right. So
yeah, that's right.
Just like the vaccine, have a donut, get a Krispy Kreme donut. What was it? You're going to lose your job and I got to work. I got to feed my family, or family members outcasting other family members because they didn't take the vaccine.
But the end goals, when people, the Jason Bourne franchise and conspiracy theory with Mel Gibson, all of that stuff came from us when we went public and proved that these were operations were going on. But its always end goal was to create a psycho-civilized society, as that came from Jose Delgado, the Princeton psychiatrist.
Psycho-civilized society. What does that mean?
That means that the thoughts, the biology.
It's completely controlled.
Yes, completely controlled. So, wow. And all of that engineering was being done and planned probably since the early 40s onwards. They knew
evil.
Oh, it's beyond evil. This is the tip of the real spear, because all the other stuff is just misdirection to keep everybody away from. Because I've had to talk about this with generals, military, elected officials, major lawyers for Trump, other those people, and you would be surprised how little they know.
Jeez. And I'll tell you one thing, you should go on Carrie Cassidy's show. Have you ever been on Carrie Cassidy?
No, I spoke to her yesterday about this because I asked her to fill in some gaps for me.
This is right up
the motivation to do this, and the reason why it's being done, I'm pretty sure, is because of the impending disclosure of our fusion with advanced intelligence in terms of extraterrestrials. That's why I think it's being done. It's being done to augment and maintain the survival of our species in a certain form. And it's the biggest and most secretive thing going behind the scenes, behind the national security curtain, since before you and I were even born. Because people don't understand, and I've listened to a lot of people out there, and they're missing critical pieces of information. Like when they passed the National Security Act of 47, that ended any kind of free-flowing transparency of government at all, because you have behind the national security curtain, that's the real world. And the real world, its rules and regulations and facts are totally different than any of the public knows. And what I mean by saying that is, if I give you a book on how to fix your car when it breaks down, but I leave out 3 chapters, it's not a very good book.
No.
And it's a lie by omission. Right. We've been lied to and betrayed so badly by design. And it's to get us to this point. And the most important aspect of this, none of this can work if you, me, and the people watching this are not coerced into voluntary compliance.
So free will.
Yeah, they want you to use your free will to walk into it.
You were as impressed with that as I was when I watched it. That was my morning viewing, and I thought, you know what he's got? I wrote down pages and pages of notes from that. And some of the stuff he said, I thought, oh, that's crazy. And I was very close to switching it off. And then he carried on, and I thought, hang on, this is all falling into place. And it's falling into place with sort of conclusions that I'd come to on my own from 4 years of interviewing people and looking at the research and everything that's gone on. And I think the problem we're having, Jason, is that even us, people generally don't want to believe that something this massive, this destructive, this evil against humanity from all these organizations like the UN who talk about human rights, we don't want to believe that they would actually press the go button on this. But you know what? The COVID-19 scamdemic was the go button on this. And all of those people were conned. They were lied to. There was no informed consent. This is why the package insert said intentionally blank. We've been attacked. I know it's dramatic to say that, but people have been attacked. They've been assaulted in what is listed as a military countermeasure, and they're not going to tell us why. And straight afterwards, the migration and the chemtrails and the financial collapse. I just don't know if they're too far into it to stop it, if there's anything we can do. But I will tell you this, anyone watching, it is massively important that you stop watching television, that you stop complying, that you minimize as much as you can your involvement in the digital world, that you turn off your Wi-Fi device and unplug it at night, and you do not have private conversations in rooms with smartphones, and you do not charge them in your bedroom or keep them next to your bed. You must not do that. Okay? It's very, very important. And it kind of leads on. I tried this morning, Jason, to cleverly trap Grok. Viewers of this show will know that I'm not a fan of AI. You've had fun with it. You've had loads of fun with it. One,
well,
because
I would say it's because I also want to challenge it, and
yes,
I consider that jousting a form of fun. Thank you.
Well, I was nervous about it. I wouldn't use the word scared. I was nervous of interacting with it because once that little red flag goes up in its system, oh, she's bitten, right? And loads of my fans on X said, oh my God, you can't be you and interact with this thing, ignore it. I wanted to ask it about conscience, lies, and trust. And I wanted to get it into a situation, I guess a little bit of entrapment, where it would prove itself to be deceptive to me. And it did, but it also proved something else about a war, Jason. Tell us about what happened.
All right, so I'm going to put the first graphic up on screen for you right now. So this is a screenshot. We probably start here. Do you want to read that out, or do you want me to read it?
Oh, I can't see that, Jason. You'll have to read it.
There you go. So I just got the glasses on, so we're at the same with and without. Have you ever been programmed with or had information provided to you on what a conscience is? Example, knowingly lying is immoral. That's the question from Nicola there. Grok replies, hello, I've been trained on the concept of conscience, which humans often describe as an inner sense of right and wrong, tied to emotions like guilt or empathy. For example, knowingly lying is immoral reflects a common view that lying harms trust, though some contexts like protecting someone might justify it. I can discuss these ideas based on my data, but I don't have feelings or a personal conscience. I process patterns, not experiences. There's a debate about whether AI can truly understand morality without consciousness. Some say I mimic moral behavior. Others argue I can't grasp it. The truth is I'm a tool, not a moral being, and the question remains open. Well, that is important framing, therefore. So AI can never be the same as a human being, basically because it is artificial. That is the whole purpose. So the closest it gets is to mimicking it. So then what you did was you went we went off on a tangent. Look at this one. Now, I haven't really zoomed that well in, but the purpose is to get the response below. Where is your mainframe based geographically? What an interesting question to ask, Nicola. What happened?
Grok ignored me and shut down, and people started asking underneath, oh my God, did Grok just stop answering? And I said, yes. So
how much time did you give it?
Oh, well, I waited and looked at it for 5 minutes, which for an AI that bounces back within seconds was a long time. I walked away. I haven't checked it since. I assume it hasn't. But one of the questions, when I started talking to it about leaders being deceptive and lying to the public because they maybe didn't want to destabilize them about an event that they knew was occurring.
Yes.
It actually confirmed, Jason, that the world leaders lied to us about the Iraq war. I mean, it mentioned Watergate. We know about Watergate, but the Iraq war. And I was like, oh my God, Grok has confirmed that they lied about the Iraq war. Extraordinary.
I did have that graphic. I wish I would have found it amongst the 300 or so I've got in front of me today.
It's okay. It's up there.
But we saw it.
Yeah,
it's extraordinary. So go to your Nicola's page, Olbourne. Nobak 88. There it is on the screen right there. Really, really interesting. Well, getting into the whole nitty gritty about media that we started the show with today, it might be worthwhile now, because I've got a bunch of Australian stories, but we might flip it upside down today. This is from Trump and NATO and the meetings that were over there. It's a combination of clips for people to take a look at. I'm hoping to sort of streamline today's story. I'll play the clip. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to get a cup of coffee, now's your time to do it, because Trump is going to run the gamut here. You're going to have fun doing it, but keep it loud in the background. Take a listen.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
He called you Daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay?
Daddy?
All right, Yep, actually, there was more to that clip, so I probably uploaded the wrong one. But isn't that interesting? Just to say that that we have that very strange scenario there from Mark Rutter, the head of NATO. What I might do is play the rest of the clip. Some of it's going to be a repeat, but I'll play it for you now. It's worth seeing that the rest of the conversation here, especially the interaction with CNN and Trump's attitude towards the mainstream media.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
He called you Daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? Please, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, fake news, CNN? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Wait till you hear this question.
Thank you, sir.
You should really say how great our soldiers and our warriors are.
I think everyone appreciates our soldiers and our warriors. I do have two questions for you, Mr. President. You just cited Israeli intelligence on these attacks. Earlier, you said U.S. intelligence was inconclusive. Are you relying on Israeli intelligence for your assessment of the impact of the strikes?
No, this is also Iran made the statement. And it's also, if you read the document that was given, that Pete can talk about if you'd like, the document said it could be very severe damage. But they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know, other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that because it was very early after. Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less. Now, even they admit that it was hit very hard, okay? But it wasn't hit hard. It was hit brutally, and it knocked it out. The original word that I use, I guess it got us in trouble because it's a strong word. It was obliteration. I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
I think we have to join the others.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. Mark Rutter, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you Daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that, but do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own?
I think they need help a little bit at the beginning, and I think they'll be able to, and I think they're going to remember this day. And this was a big day for NATO. You know, this was a very big day. They took it. One of the gentlemen said, you know what? We've been trying to raise money raise the rate for 30 years, he said, 20 years, from almost the beginning. And he's been there for a long time. He said, until you came along, it never happened. What you did is amazing. It's been sort of an amazing day for a lot of reasons, but also for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think they can do it without you, though, in the future? Can they do it without
Well, ask Mark.
States?
I mean, you have to ask Mark, okay? So we're heading back. We'll see you in Washington, D.C. Remember this, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Jason, isn't that like a Sopranos protection racket? Because news broke in Australia that for NATO, Trump asked a large amount of money, a big increase from Australia, and Australia said no, which is extraordinary to me. By the way, fans are complaining we say extraordinary too much, so I do apologize for using that word. You're basically saying pay up to NATO and it's protection money and we'll protect you. I mean, you have to dumb it down to its most base level. I don't like it. It's a protection racket. I mean, so I feel countries obviously haven't spent enough on defense or are not capable or have no desire to go it alone. That's why they group together with other countries in the form of NATO. NATO, we know, is expanding. They want to bring in Ukraine. Russia's not happy about it. Is China in NATO, Jason?
No, of course not. Not the Atlantic Treaty Organization. So effectively,
Wow.
the countries are, well, it's a European American alliance, which is
So
technically
is BRICS more than a currency separation, Jason? Is BRICS more of a military separation than a currency separation?
Well, BRICS is not necessarily a currency organization, but it's a trading bloc, if anything else, that would then culminate in the idea of moving away from a US dollar as the one currency. But look, they talk about it being a multipolar world, but what we've seen is that it isn't a multipolar world as much as China wants to make out that it is, and Russia. There was Putin last week saying, I'll help you out with Iran and the USA. And Trump said, how about you just go and organize Ukraine? China said, we want a de-escalation, did nothing more. And then it flexed its muscles over Taiwan here and there. These countries don't have the power that they say that they do or they imply that they do. And I think that's been demonstrated and will continue in a bit more in this particular discussion shortly by some of the other information. But Trump's already ended the BRICS currency by comments that he made a few weeks or months ago when he said that anyone adopting a BRICS currency will have an automatic 100% tariff placed upon them. So it can't work from the outset because you need the United States to trade. The whole purpose of this NATO money situation is that these countries never paid and they never met their responsibilities, their financial contributions over the years, but depended on US military for said interventions. But at the same time, Trump is trying to create peace around the world so you won't need NATO to do it. And when she said at the end of it, how can they do it? Will they be able to do it without you? Implies, because Trump's already threatened to pull out of NATO, which is something that would be also very interesting there if you're moving for a separation. Why would Trump remove said powers? Unless he was breaking the war machine up once and for all when he achieves peace. When he achieves peace, however he's going to do that. So what's really interesting was today, Steve Witkoff, peace envoy for the Middle East, has announced an expansion of the Abraham Accords. I'll play that for you now. It's interesting. We didn't expect to see this, certainly not this week after what we saw last week.
One of the president's key objectives is that the Abraham Accords be expanded, that more countries come into it, and we are working on that on my team and in coordination with the Secretary of State and the entire State Department. And we think we're going to have some pretty big announcements on countries that are now coming into the Abraham Peace Accords. And we're hoping for normalization across an array of countries that maybe people would have never contemplated would come in. So we're excited for that prospect. That will also be a stabilizer in the Middle East.
He said it. He said the word normalization.
Well, normalization means moving away from threats and terrorism and et cetera, what's going on. Now, I had opportunity to speak to an Iranian born, US educated nuclear engineer. And the term that he kept bringing up was appeasement. And that was the comparison between previous US administrations and the Trump administration. And he was saying, and I then circled back and I asked him, well, can you put that into context in relation to Barack Obama's administration sending pallets of cash via aeroplane to Iran? And he summarized it as being the ultimate in appeasement. That is, that previous administrations appeasing the mullahs by letting them do what they needed to, what they were going to do, without trying to cause too much friction. So the actions of Trump have ended said appeasement and have literally put them back into their place and opened the door for a regime change in that country. So that has to be achieved by the people, and instead of regime change being put upon them by the CIA and other interventions, this is a very different approach. To explain the point a little bit further, I think this is an interesting graphic. I'm just going to bring it up here for you, which pretty much just reaffirms what Trump said in that question and answer there. He said, Israel just stated that the nuclear sites were obliterated. Thank you to our great B-2 pilots and all the others involved. And he also mentioned that Iran said the same thing. So I'm just going to see if I've got that graphic to
why would he be relying on what Israel and Iran tell him? Why doesn't America have the technical capabilities to look from space and see for themselves? I find that very odd.
Well, if Iran has admitted that the nuclear sites were destroyed, and Israel admits that the nuclear sites were destroyed, and Trump says that they were destroyed, but the MSM hoax says that that it's not. And here's a crater photo that they provided here explaining that the satellite picture, this was in News Murdoch Press, shows craters across access roads that leads to the tunnel entrances on Iran's Fordow fuel enrichment plant. So where are we going with all of this? So if Israel says so their excuse for war is now gone, because this was all about the threat of nuclear weapons. So Israel is saying, well, there's no more threat. Iran is saying it's over. We don't have any more nuclear facilities. So if they were to do it, you've now got a line in the sand and a starting point. And if the media wants to come out and then challenge the president of the United States, and of course, they were saying that Tulsi Gabbard was saying that there wasn't said facilities in the beginning. She's come out and said new intelligence confirms what the president has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians choose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild all three facilities entirely, which would take years to do. The propaganda media has deployed the usual tactic, selectively releasing portions of illegally leaked classified intel assessments, intentionally leaving out the fact that the assessment was written with low confidence to try to undermine President Trump's decisive leadership and the brave servicemen and women who flawlessly executed a truly historic mission. Now, the CIA has come out in their press release and said the CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by the recent targeted strikes. So, this is why it's so fascinating about what's happening here, because we're going to arrive at a situation. Let's assume that they keep going down this pathway and they maintain that that they haven't been destroyed, whilst Israel, Iran, the United States, the CIA, Tulsi Gabbard are all on side. And they're able to say to the world, no, this isn't the case, but Iran has technically surrendered. Israel is no longer allowed to fight over nuclear said weapons. You're going down a pathway that takes you to the word or the letter of Q, which is this is all a movie. It was all staged. Because we heard yesterday that all of these parts, Saudi Arabia's on side, they all had to be on side. Clandestine wrote an article saying the whole idea, it couldn't have happened unless they'd already been informed. If the mainstream media confirms that the existence of Q is real and that this is all part of a movie, that legitimizes that whole approach, and then we now know where we are. What does that therefore mean, Justice Hunters? It's very simple. This popped up yesterday, June the 24th, what they call a Delta from 5 years ago. Barack Hussein Obama in the frame for seditious conspiracy and treason. We'll get that off as quickly as possible because it moves to this one. Also on the same date, the People's General. Who's that? Who is the People's General? Why did that not work? Oh, Can you see that on the screen there, or is that not working?
Yes, unfortunately, I can. Yeah.
So there you go. That is Michael Flynn, the People's General. It just becomes very interesting what's popping up at these exact right moments about what is going on. So are we then going to get to the real stuff that's been hidden for so long? That is the question that we have got asked right now. But it seems that if everyone is on side, and you're now talking about Abraham Accords, normalization, leading towards peace and economic recovery, and if the people of Iran, for example, can have the sanctions removed, get rid of the mullahs who have been using the money against them, who are executing 74% of all worldwide executions in 1 year, and that country can be a return to economic prosperity and a secular government, you've got a very different scenario. Now, he also explained to me, Shaheen, the concept of Sunnis versus Shia. He says it's not even about that. He says people get on. It's not about that, but there's a whole separation. But it's the fanaticism at the top that has been the problem all along. So technically, like people can say, a Hamas government in Palestine, Hamas being a terrorist organization in power, you've got a similar organization with the mullahs in Iran. And it's about the people rejecting it, which weren't able to do in Palestine. They didn't want to reject it. So that's also an interesting scenario and a little layer of information there that people may or may not understand. So my summary to what we've just seen there is that that the work of the individuals, and this is all about digital soldiers and sharing on Twitter, Facebook, etc., never retreat from the battlefield in the spreading of said information. And it comes down to this one with the old man president, the golden rule of negotiating and success. He who has the gold makes the rules. Thank you. So Trump is holding the cards. He's holding the value. Mark Rutter calls him daddy, and NATO is falling into line. Rutter did all the dirty work and got these countries to pony up. And if they want security and they want to do that, they're going to have to fund it themselves. And all people have been put well and truly into their place once and for all. And I'll give you one more controversial headline in all of it. This is Trump today again. He has supported Netanyahu. I was shocked to hear that the state of Israel, which has said one of the greatest moments in history and strongly led to Bibi Netanyahu, is continuing its ridiculous witch hunt against the great wartime prime minister. So what I would say is that it would be the bargain in all of this. He's told Israel, we're not going to intervene anymore. He was put them in their place with the F-bombs yesterday. And now he comes out and says, if you do what you are told, I will come out in support of you and you'll probably keep your life. And that is the negotiation that I think is played out in real time. Questions, answers, all the rest of it, throw them underneath the comments there. But that's the way I'm reading things at the moment. I see it ultimately leading in the right direction. Looks like we have now ended the fear of war ongoing now, and Iran has been put back into line, and now comes the good stuff. Nicola.
I find it fascinating that you are clearly a massive fan of Trump and also a fan of clandestine. If you actually think about and look at what clandestine is saying, which in large part, I agree with. So we are watching a movie. We know this for a fact because the amount of twists and turns. Tulsi Gabbard is a former decorated soldier, and Tulsi Gabbard is still a decorated soldier. But now she's having to merge it into her PR job. So we are watching a movie. No war begins and ends in 12 days, Jason. There are things going on this planet that they don't want us to know about. If you think that the home of Hollywood, which Trump says he wants to reinvest in and bring back its former glory, I'm not surprised. Because Hollywood are the greatest generators of propaganda and movies anywhere on planet Earth. And it has served America very well globally with propaganda. I believed it all. I believed in the Top Gun, the Independence Day, America is great, the policeman of the world. In his first administration, I believe that Trump was naive and did not know about much of what's really going on. And he was tricked and hoodwinked into the beginning of something I think he wasn't aware of. But this second administration of Trump is fully aware. And he too is guilty of deceiving people. So I would ask, how can you be both a fan of clandestine and Trump? Clandestine is telling you that it's all fabrication.
Well, that's the best part of it, because they are going to lead in and show you exactly how it works. That's the whole point of what I'm saying. They are allowing the media to follow this pathway and actually do the job of the media. And at the same time, they are saying that how is it that the two mortal enemies can now agree over what is fake? What is fake? If this is what the media is going to go and do their jobs once and for all, and it is going to arrive, and then they're going to go, hang on a second, this is a movie. What is actually going on here? Oh my God, the Biden administration was bullshit. It was pretend. Thank you very much. Joe Biden, rip the bloody mask off. Let's see what's underneath. Let's find out about the 2020 election and see what's really going on here. This is the greatest cleansing in history. That is the whole point. And then they will have to ask all the big questions. And if that's the case, and we are going to see what is going to be unraveled, and we've been putting up with this for 4 years, goodness me, that may well even get the compensation for all of us who have been turned insane during this period of time. That is exactly what I want to happen. And that is exactly what I'm expecting to happen. We can't be lied to anymore. Propaganda is the ultimate enemy of everything, because it is an official lie designed to deceive us. So,
do we have any protections in Australia against propaganda, like lawfully?
I don't even know the answer to the question, but I tell you what, we've been propagandized so long that it wouldn't surprise me if they have the same type of propagandized laws, because they lie to our faces about everything. So now this is where it gets really exciting. If you can show the whole world that we have been lied to and that Trump used propaganda in a movie in order to bring them to the table, to get them to do their jobs once and for all, we can then turn around and suddenly that video clip that we played yesterday of Anthony Albanese taking a false oath proves that the whole thing is now the world's going, holy shit, he did lie. That is not real. What else is not real? Oh,
all of
COVID? All of it. That is the point. This is why I think this is such a pivotal moment in what we're seeing now, because they've finally broken the spell. It is so brilliant. I mean, it is so obvious that this can't possibly be the case. I will say historically there was the 6-Day War in 1967 with Israel in the Middle East as well. Just to clarify
another Israel.
Yeah, well, that was the 6-Day War.
I like it short.
Yeah, well, basically they were attacked on the Day of Atonement when they were all expected to be in the synagogue praying on the holiest day of the year, and instead they were called to arms. And there was a whole bunch of propaganda that these countries were going to push Israel into the sea, and then the big what do you call it, the Air Force, etc., found out what was going on, realised that there wasn't the attacks that were going on, pushed back, took the Golan, and decided at the same time that they would take back Jerusalem, which had already been taken some 25 or 26 times in history, and Israel took it back in that 6-Day War period. And that, of course, has been the fighting ever since, was to give back said territories in that period of time.
Your arms folded, Jason?
They are folded, and mainly because it's
You're so defensive to me.
No. It's freezing cold in here, and my hands are like ice blocks. So that's what it is. Yeah. So it's snowing. I'm literally.
I just think, because we love our viewers, right? So we try and be honest. And you're right. If we disagree, we disagree. I just think that we have gone fast forward because it was all hidden, and wars are not about bombs and bullets, not even bunker busting bombs anymore. As Trump said, he betrayed a little tiny bit. He always betrays a little tiny bit, like the first administration where he said, they're not after me, they're after you. When he said, we have weapons you can't even imagine. They don't need bombs and bullets. It's no joke about Jewish space lasers or American space lasers. There are space lasers. We saw them torch Maui, right? So that contributes to my mind about when a war or a conflict, whether it's 12 days or 12 years, is real or not. It's story time for 5-year-olds. That's what propaganda is. We're on a need-to-know basis, and we don't need to know. And I hazard a guess, as I try to ask Rock, are leaders deceptive and lying to us because it would be so destabilizing for us to know the truth. And Grok gave the example of Watergate and the Iraq War that yes, it would be. So they obviously came up with the fabrication of weapons of mass destruction. So I think, in a way, right, it's quite reassuring. That's the word. Not completely, because there's a horrible dystopian end game that they'd like, where we all live in these massively digitized cities and nobody's got any sterility. Right, we can't have children because the human body can't exist around all those electromagnetic fields, just with health, never mind fertility. But I think some of the plans are succeeding, some of the plans are failing, some of the plans are just stalled. I do believe Trump is trying to take the technology that was going to be used in an offensive way against us, and actually was used in an offensive way against us, and trying to consolidate the power of it into the better side of America. Loads of people are going to write to the show and tell me I'm wrong about that he's one of them, that he's a globalist.
Oh, God. Seriously? Are we... anyone who wants to tell me that Trump's a globalist, please explain it in 300 words or less. Use Grok if you need to. I mean, that's the most ridiculous comment I've ever heard in my life, that Trump's a globalist. Trump's a globalist.
He did just clip Israel's wings, didn't he? In a tiny little way. And, yesterday on the front page of Melbourne's newspaper, it said, Trump uses the F-bomb.
Well, that was the news. Exactly right. I mean, what does MAGA mean? Make the world great again, or make America great again? What does Trump isolationism mean, for goodness sake? The penetrative wall around it.
We were just talking about everything being a movie, and I just really believe that. I do believe that we're in a lot more danger than we understand from the digital world, and from wars have become, as they always have, wars have become about intelligence gathering. And of course, AI and digital assist them with that, particularly if you comply. That podcast that you used to clip of earlier, they were saying they can't do any of this without your informed consent. You have to say yes to it. Right. So I just think we all need to be, it's a strong term, but I almost think we need to be on a war footing, in the sense that if we assume everything that's being offered, everything that's being recommended, everything that looks nice and cuddly and is for our well-being, our health and our safety in particular, should be looked at with some element of suspicion, and you do what's right for you. But if you don't know the absolute ins and outs of what's being offered to you, my advice would be to give it a miss.
Yeah, well said. Now, a couple of quick stories that will run out for you. This is the last one to wrap up what we're talking about media and lies, etc. This is Carrie Lake giving testimony, and just watch what happens, the reaction, and how she explains it. It's a short clip, but it's brilliant.
What the editorial content is, and I would hope that you would not be okay with that. They could literally put out a lie about anybody here, and I know you've been the victim of that. I remember the stories about you where they said you had a gay lover, and those were going
Mr.
on
Chairman.
Can I
I hope you honor what you just gave as a caution to everyone, and I moved those words
to tell you that those kind of lies, and you said those were lies, those kind of lies could be broadcast today on VOA, and you couldn't pick up the phone, Representative Stanton, and call them and say, hey, you're putting out lies about me. You would not be able to do that because they would sue you for breaking the firewall.
That is such a brilliant clip.
Her. She's gorgeous. I could marry her. If I ever jumped the fence, I'd jump Carrie Lake's fence. It was very clever what she did there. Do you understand what she did there?
It was absolutely brilliant. But wasn't it interesting that the person was re-offended, thinking that they were being played? They literally jumped out into a panic mode. And she's like, that's what I'm talking about. But thank you for representing that self-interest comes before the real story here, just the same. And she has buried the mainstream media, which is exactly what we're talking about right now. This is where mainstream media is being dragged along. And when you think about it, if it turns out that what we're saying becomes proven, independent media at that point instantly becomes credentialed in a way that you could never have expected, because people will be asking, well, what else were they saying? What else did they know? And what else have I ignored for so long? And so all of a sudden people are going to come watching, listening and looking. Meantime, let's head back home and let's watch the alternate Prime Minister effectively tell us she will not be the leader in 2026 and possibly not even in 2025. Have a look at Sussan Ley yesterday.
Another area that demands stronger government intervention is the protection of our children from devices and technology. The rise of digital technology and social media has changed the world and unlocked so much potential. But in opening those doors, strangers have unfortunately been let into the lives of our children. We have allowed some of the smartest people in the world to make billions of dollars by peddling addictive technology to children. And it is shortening their childhoods. Parents need government in their corner to help fight this fight.
I wouldn't jump the fence for her. She's vile. She needs some acting lessons. She is a very bad communicator. I don't trust her at all. She was nervous, and that kind of anxiety only comes when you know that you're being deceptive. So she was saying something and going like nodding like a dog, like, please believe me, right? Because this is dangerous for your children. Do you understand? She is not a good person. I can't imagine anyone being drawn into that party, Jason, with her as the leader.
Well, I would go a step further. I would say that she's actually been appointed by the Albanese government as a cabinet minister of the Minister for Labor Government in perpetuity. That woman is unelectable. The Liberal Party cannot win at all with her in the leadership position. Impossible. So
a double agent? You're saying she's like a double agent?
I'm just saying that she's the ultimate useful idiot in a party of globalists that doesn't know its backside from its elbow in this situation. And the National Party is the one that is keen to make big gains. If you consider Sussan Ley and then you put her up against Matt Canavan, there is no comparison. But I'll tell you what I think it's doing. I think it's clearing the way that if the Liberals are actually ever going to within their own microcosm be effective, this is the way I would do it, and I've never voted for them ever, and I've never had anything to do with them, although I've reached out to a few to get interviews. I think Matt Canavan as the Nationals becomes the leader, and Jacinta Price can become the deputy leader of the Liberals, and they flip. They become the National Liberals and no longer the Liberal Nationals. The only way they can move forward from this point. They're finished as a party because they are literally Labor light. They haven't got any relevance whatsoever. But there are some good people like the Matt Canavans, like the Alex Antich. And Alex, you can come onto the show anytime you like, but you got to do a bit more than that. From your position, and you need to they need to make peace with the people they let go as well.
Alex Antic is actually out doing podcasts and other people's shows. So I don't know if he's got a beef with you or me or both. I find it odd that he's not responding and he's not coming on. But, she's doing a really good job, Jason, if her job is to be unlikable, to present as untrustworthy, to present as insincere, because those are all the things I feel from her. It's a large statement, but I would have been more likely to trust Peter Dutton than her. So I don't know quite what they think they're doing, but really we know in politics everything happens for a reason. So you're right. In a really sad and unusual ramification from this, she is bolstering Anthony Albanese.
Oh, she is the best friend that Anthony Albanese ever had. There's no question. Of course, she doesn't realise it. And in politics, you need to take your opportunities when they come. In most situations, you can't really wait it out. Very few people have been able to come back. Kevin Rudd surprisingly returned to be Prime Minister for 30 days before he was taken out. John Howard was the leader of the opposition on more than one occasion before he finally got the momentum. But those are few and far between. We saw this procession of 1-2 long-term Prime Ministers, Turnbull, Tony Abbott, Kevin Rudd again, Julia Gillard, Albo looking like he was going to be another one-termer. And it's just these people, once you're gone in those circumstances, they generally retire. ScoMo sort of did one and did 4 years and wasn't much better. And it was only COVID that sort of kept him going at that point when the world was mesmerised by what was happening. Now, another sad or disappointing story, I'm just looking for the graphic to bring up here, is one that we're alerted to about the dress code in the Northern Territory. Very odd story concerning the homeless. So a bus dress code policy is another cruel blow to the Territory's most vulnerable, is their heading there in a story that we found from the soup kitchen themselves that issued a press release. You can see the word vulnerable misspelled. So, yeah, exactly right. And so, however, what it does do is it raises awareness to the fact that if you're not going to let people onto a bus who most need to get access to travel because of the way that they're dressed, well, then you're dealing with the real problem at hand. Is well, how do we get these people to have clean clothes and have them access to facilities so that they can be washed and at least provide a minimum amount of respect for all human beings, no matter where they live? You would expect that would be the simplest thing. And yet yesterday we read a story about how the Albanese government is trying to ban caravans on private property from preventing people from living in them. And of course they'll come back and say that they're unsafe because one caught fire or a mouse got in and someone got gastro because of infected food or some nonsense.
It's a survival thing. People are surviving by going in caravans on friends' land, and they don't want you to survive. That bus story saying that people with dirty clothes, which is the homeless, can't get a ticket and get a ride to where they need to go, that is oppression. It's Australia and it's 2025 and we're oppressing our minorities. I was thinking about it after yesterday's show, this whole DEI question, right? If we, because more Indian migrants, for example, as a group, have come to Australia and are now living in Australia than we have our Indigenous peoples, right? And this Labor government reckons it protects Indigenous peoples. No, you don't. Why didn't they, if they want people of colour to be first in line for jobs or up for jobs, why weren't those jobs given to our people of colour? Our Aboriginals, our Indigenous tribes, our people, our Australian people. If you really cared about them as a minority group, they would have been first in line. But no, they're last in line. New Australians are being given all the jobs. You can see that. They walk up my driveway with the Amazon packages. And now what do we see? Those Indigenous tribes, the heritage laws, everyone you say you care about, they're last in line to the point where they're now so oppressed they can't get on a bus in their own country that you're telling us they're Indigenous to? Fuck you, Albanese. Fuck you.
Well said. Well said. The Voice. Pandering, pretending, playing games. And we have a situation here that people are mistreated at a level that is absolutely unacceptable in a country that's bringing in imports because we're so wealthy that we can do so. What a disgrace to think you actually have refugees in our own country of our own Indigenous organisation. Is extraordinary. Well, meantime, if you're in the New South Wales government, they've gone even further down a pathway. You can change your gender on your birth certificate now without any proof whatsoever. Have a look at this. And I thought the most interesting part was Chris Minns. He was really interested. He was playing on his phone. Have a look in the background.
As the good member foreshadowed, next Tuesday is a really special day, and you should be very proud in particular of your efforts to champion this particular reform, because from next Tuesday it's going to be easier for the people of New South Wales, for gender diverse people to be able to update their birth certificate. And up until now, New South Wales has been the only jurisdiction where it required a person to undergo surgery to be able to change their registered sex. But the amendments that have been made to the Birth, Test and Marriages Registration Act 1995, something I share with the Attorney General, do away with this requirement and now bring us into line with the rest of the country. The key points here are making sure that everybody is supported and feels included, respected and safe when dealing with New South Wales government, particularly in transactions It's at the very heart of the New South Wales government. And for me personally, as a really simple view, I talk about often inclusion and what inclusion means in my portfolio. And I want to say inclusion means everyone. That means every single person needs to be included and it needs to be catered for. People seeking to change illegal documentation will be able to apply online through a new digital application. We've made it streamlined as well, mate. Nice and easy.
Okay, I need to give an urgent warning regarding this. This is not about inclusion and respect and safety. This is about lawfare. It's interesting that he was talking about you no longer need to have any kind of gender reassignment surgery, as there's been uproar about the ages involved to qualify to do this. Now, the jokey side of Nicola Charles would say, great, I'm going to go and change my birth certificate and say I'm male, and I'm finally going to be paid what I'm worth when I do a job. Because so far I've always been underpaid compared to my male counterparts. But the real side of me, the side that understands the law and the Constitution, knows that this corporation that has undertook a corporate coup d'etat of our country, here's Australia, the rock, the Constitution, and this coup d'etat has covered it with a paper which must be burnt off. What they need to do is draw you into commerce. And again, very much like the injections, very much like anything else they're going to offer you, you must choose it for yourself. That's what they're offering you for your safety and for inclusion. Now, when you do that, one thing, particularly on a birth certificate, it's very dark. Under law, you are no longer under man-woman status because you've announced yourself as something else. So what happens is, in a court setting, you are a corporation and not a man or a woman. And when you're not a man or a woman, guess what? You just handed your human rights away. Be very careful. You can identify as anything you want in your private life. As an adult, you can do anything you want to your body. My God, women have been having breast implants for years and look like they've got 2 giant balloons on their chest. Do what you want with your genitals. Do what you want if you're an adult. But I am telling you now, when you start making this stuff official and putting it on documents, you've just taken yourself out of human law. Be very careful.
Yeah, good, very, very observant, very good call, and a positive reminder of something that it's not that you just came up with that. You've been talking about that for some time, and that's got it stitches it up in real time. I've got one more clip I want to show you. This is RFK talking about kids. Take a look at this one, and it might even help sew this up a little bit further.
The major reason that the Biden administration lost track of all those children is because they were emphasizing speed over security. And there were political reasons for that. They wanted to get the kids out of U.S. custody, so they were handing them off to anybody. They didn't require background checks. They didn't require identification even. I've watched horror stories of the same person picking up child after child after child, using different names and different addresses. One of the addresses was a strip club. One of the addresses was a parking lot. One of the addresses was an empty lot that was filled with shipping containers. And this character was getting all these kids. One person got 42 kids to one address. What we're doing now is DNA testing on every sponsor. We're doing personal identification. We're doing background checks, and we're doing income verification.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. My time is
Young
expired.
ladies.
So that's Kennedy talking about again with kids and this situation there where the Biden administration was that careless in what was going on. You just wonder where priority is, where honesty is, and if we're just exposing an industry in real time. But there you go. Now, having said that, RFK also
can I just say, RFK is also saying that we all need to wear wearable devices for our health, and that is I was massively disappointed when I saw that clip.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to say, that Kennedy has also suggested that is the hope. And of course, what it does do is it would be voluntary, but it's encouraged. But at the same time, the rest of us would be saying absolutely under no circumstances, 100%. I wouldn't ever wear a watch with a stepper, for goodness sake. I mean, you can just shake your hand and it steps for you. I mean, it's not even real. Why would we consider that? But again, this is the point, isn't it? There's so many things that are just not real anymore. And if they're not real, then, and if you go along to do it, it is a trap, as you've just
Well, you can
described.
make them real. Yeah, you make them real and you take yourself into commerce. You are contracting with a corporation that, believe me, does not have your best interests at heart.
Whichever way you look at it, there is a cull, no matter what, from whichever side you look at this, and you can participate in said cull, or you can fight against it for as long as you are taking breath. But I really think that is the line in the sand. And I think that video clip that we played earlier of James Martinez, when he actually talks about the idea of preparing us for a disclosure of higher intelligence, and this goes back to the mark of the beast, that someone somewhere is going to want to say that to get a job, they're going to need to put the AI chip in their head to become competitive, and therefore opens a floodgate. And others will say, well, if he does it, I've got to do it because I can't get a job without it. And that will be the trick at that point. You can use AI to your advantage, as we've already seen, and you can test it, but you certainly don't need the convenience of it being inserted inside your body to be able to have some advantage. That is falling for the trick of convenience. Once again, what do you do when your AI computer chip in your head needs a reboot? What do? Do you click on your temple? Do you press a button on your coccyx? I mean, how are you going to? Did you like that use there? I mean, it's appropriate.
Oh, I wondered what you were going to say then, Jason. Seriously, thank you so much.
But seriously, I mean, that's the point, right? Like, you know that's a line in the sand that you're never going to cross. I also look at it and wonder if vaccine culture was perhaps an extension of tattoo culture. As a kid growing up, I never wanted to get a needle. I was scared of them. But everyone started getting tattoos and no one was afraid of a needle anymore. So you could never use that excuse, I'm afraid of a needle, if you've got ink on your body, because you're doing it voluntarily. That was my point. And maybe they figured that was the way that it would work because, it's just part of culture these days. So that's another aside just the same.
I'm just checking if Grok has yet answered my question from 9:14 a.m., just at the end of the show here. No, it hasn't, where I asked Grok, where is your mainframe located geographically? Silence. And everyone's under there going, oh my God, did Grok stop answering? I mean, it could have just said, I can't reveal that for security reasons. It could have said China, could have said Ukraine. We don't know. But the way it went silent is really odd. Really odd.
I'm now wondering if the challenge is going to be out to see how many other questions you can ask Grok that it will openly avoid. And therefore, people might want to train a camera on that and watch it in real time so that they can document the paralyzing of Grok in real time. Well, it has been another interesting show again today, challenges, debates, etc. We want to hear yours underneath. And no, I don't delete anyone's comments. And I'll make this proviso that if you want to be an absolute imbecile, there will come a point that I'll just hit the block button because, that's just ridiculous. But making unfounded accusations that I'm deleting comments that I don't like is pretty childish and just indicates that there's, no matter what you do, there's always those that want to play those silly bugger games. Having said that, tomorrow is going to be obviously episode 121, followed by a special edition for the Daily Australians that have decided to come aboard as paid subscribers to our show. So we'll record a special video for you guys.
Yeah, I might tell you what I really think about all our politicians, like really think about them. And to those of you bothering my radio husband, stop bothering Jason. He puts a lot of work into this show. I know you just try and rile him up because I think he bites a bit quicker than I do. And for those of you who are respectful and give great feedback, thank you so much. And you've really taken it on board. And you say little comments because you're trying to be a bunker buster bomb for the algorithm. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us for today's show. I've had a lot of fun, even though I'm sitting in my kitchen. Who knows? Maybe I'll always broadcast from the kitchen. It's nice and warm and comfortable. Thank you for watching The Daily Australian with myself, Nicola Charles, and my lovely co-host, Jason Olbourne. Back off, bitches. We'll do this all over again tomorrow.